Sharanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirishanamam. Dear viewers, as mentioned by Swami Atmeshanji, I have been requested to speak on the topic of stress management techniques. We thought this could be a topic of interest. Maybe we could share some ideas with you that will be useful to you in these stressful testing times. Of course, there are people in different situations facing different types of stresses. It could be something at a physical level where somebody is having issues with getting food or medicines or a place to rent and live. It could be something at a psychological level where one is faced with situations like ill health, death around families, and it could be also at a spiritual level where the coronavirus we're not so much afraid of the virus, but what the virus can do. In other words, we are afraid of the death it can cause. So, with all different types of viewers watching this program, but not being here in front of me, where I can't identify the audience, it's a little bit challenging task to speak in a very specific way. So I'll try to keep it very broad, and hopefully you'll pick up some ideas which will be useful to you. So what is stress? Let us say, if you take a rubber band lying on a table, it's in a totally unstressed situation. But if I pull it out, then it is under stress. That means it has two polarities, and the more we pull it out, the tension or the stress level increases. So, life is itself a stressful situation. When somebody asked Swami Vivekananda what is life, he said it's a struggle between the forces outside him and the forces within him. The forces outside are the forces of nature, in which we have to live, provide ourselves food, clothing, shelter. So long we can do that, our stress level goes down. When we can't do that, our stress level goes up. It could be forces or the immune system of a person. The immune system comes down, then the virus and bacteria and things around, they are able to make us sick. But when we are strong, then we don't get sick. And of course, we live in this world where constantly we are interacting and acting with each other. We are not living on an island, so we affect people, we get affected by people's situations, we create situations and situations work on us. So this interconnected interdependence is there, and that is what life is. So long as we are winning, we live. When we become weak, we succumb, then we die, so to say. So that's the fact of life. And the question is, how do we manage this stress? We can't escape it totally, we can't eliminate it totally, but how do we manage it? Is stress useful and good for us also? I think many of us in these circumstances are finding that when they are pushed by the situation, then people have been innovative, creative, and finding different ways of surviving and doing things. So let me in this talk, I'll tell a few little stories, and hopefully you will remember those stories and be able to relate with them in one way or the other. So one of the stories is a story of a little lobster. It lived on the Great Barrier Reef and had its nice food. It grew, and as it grew, it became a little bit more and more stressed out. And the reason was that its exoskeleton, the shell, was not growing as he was growing from within. So it was getting more and more stressed out, complaining here and there. No one is able to help him until, as a last resort, it went and found a nice quiet place in the corner of a reef, and it shed its shell. And the moment he did that, it got relieved and it could grow larger. So you see, in the case of this little lobster, the stress forced him to shed its shell. There was something that was limiting its growth, and there's no other way to shed those limitations, only then we can grow. The trigger point of shedding it was stress. So stress can be good. Sometimes we automatically, naturally try to create a stressful situation for our growth. For example, if you want to be strong, you go to a gymnasium. You put yourself through a very stressful situation of pumping the iron, doing so many exercises, sweating and being painful. But you know that through those exercises, the body will respond and generate more muscles in there. So you become stronger. And knowing that, we then voluntarily, willingly take up these exercises there. So we should not always say that stress is negative or bad. It's how we manage it to our advantage and use it for our own growth and development. So remember the story of this little lobster sitting on the reef and how they are managing the stress, whether that would apply to us in this situation. There's another little story, and this is a story that comes from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. He tells of a story of a kite, a bird, more like a hawk or eagle, that was sitting on a palm tree very comfortably, peacefully, on the bank of the river Ganga. And on that day, some fishermen brought the little boat after catching fish, and as they were unloading the fish, one of the fish fell down, and this bird scooped down and picked up the fish and flew away. As it was flying away, he could hear some noise behind it, and he turned around and he saw there was a whole flock of birds, crows, chasing him. He flew to the right and the birds flew to the right behind him, to the left, this way, that way, up, around, everywhere, trying to escape them. And in this all hustle and bustle, the fish that was in the beak of the bird slipped and fell down. And when it fell down, all the birds stopped chasing this kite but went after the fish. And this bird flew back to its branch and sat down and reflected that the problems, the birds were not really after him, but they were after the fish. So you'll find that sometimes we have got some fish like this in our beak, and we have all these problems that are chasing us. They're not really after us. The real cause is that fish that we are carrying. That means it could be some desire. It could be some thing that we really don't need, but we have taken a fancy for, and now the problems are attendant to it. It could be something that's other than your basic minimum requirement of food, clothing, shelter. For example, if you buy a very expensive car and then have all the problem paying it off, that is not necessary. And if you say, okay, I don't really need it, I'm going to sell it off, then all the problem attending with that desire also disappear with it. So here, we can empower ourselves when we are in a stressful situation to reflect very calmly rather than blaming the external circumstances. Like in this case, the kite is trying to blame all these birds, but the problem is with him and the solution is with him also. So at times we need to sit down and reflect quietly, and I think in this coronavirus situation, all of us are being forced to sit down quietly and reflect. It can become boring if you are not using it for good purpose. It can be very productive if we can utilize this to your advantage. This type of internal reflection disciplines that is very strongly prescribed by Sri Ramakrishna. When devotees would go and ask him about how to make spiritual progress, he would invariably tell them that one must now and then go and live in solitude. He would say, if you can be in solitude for a month, 30 days, that's excellent. A week is also very good. Even 3 days is very nice. And even one day. So now and then we have to drop things that we are doing, in which we are all very nicely entangled with, and step back, retreat, and look at and ask ourselves and what we are doing, why we are doing, and what are the essentials in our life, what is the value and purpose. If we do not do that, then days become weeks, become months, become years, and becomes lifetime, and we go through this. So, in this situation, when we are forced to be quarantined in our homes or in our own locations, we can turn this to our advantage to reflect on life as to how we are here in this situation, what we have achieved in this life, what is the meaning and purpose of life, and how we can reorient ourselves, set up the new priorities to determine or to achieve what we want out of this life. So that requires a little bit more deep thinking, and sometimes a very stressful situation can be the trigger to make this change for us. So I'll tell another story, not a story, but I'll relate you to a teaching scripture that all of you know. The Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna. And right in the beginning we find Arjuna is in a very stressful situation. He's totally distressed. He's a great warrior, very accomplished in his profession. He didn't have any physical problems. He didn't have much of a mental problem. He had some emotional issues, the attachment to his relatives who are on the other side of the army, whom he will kill. And he had some moral and ethical, whether these are right things to do or not, whether it's better to abandon this battle and go into the forest rather than win a kingdom and have the blood of his kith and kin in his hands. And of course he had this issue of a spiritual issue where he thought that he could really kill those people. So in that situation, when he is about to start the battle, even before any arrow has been shot at him, he is a defeated man. He's sweating, shivering, shaking on his knees, the bows and arrows have slipped out of his hand, and discovering his insufficiency. At that time, he opens himself to Sri Krishna and says to him that I hereby surrender to you. I am your student. You please advise me what is best for me. You see, Sri Krishna and Arjuna were great friends. They worked together, ate together, hunted together and all that. But never before this crisis did Arjuna ask Sri Krishna for any spiritual teachings. And maybe Sri Krishna also did not give them. Only when he was ready for it and open to it, then Sri Krishna propounded this wonderful teachings of Vedanta as given in these 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Now what did Sri Krishna do? Did he stop the war and say, let's not have this fighting anymore? Did he advise him, you better leave this and let others fight? Or did he give him the right type of understanding and education, empowered him so that in the light of new knowledge and education, Sri Arjuna could discharge his responsibilities? And we find that the Vedanta philosophy as taught by Sri Krishna is very, very powerful, that after these 18 doses, 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, this person who was all conquered and defeated right in the beginning of the war was on his feet, and with a very clear mind he could undertake a task, a duty that is far much more difficult than any of us are facing now. So, what did he do? Well, one of the first ideas that was taught by Sri Krishna to Arjuna was the true nature of man. That man is not only a physical being, is not only an emotional being, a mental being, moral being, but fundamentally he is a spiritual being. He is a spiritual being having a human experience in this life. He has had many experiences and births before, and if he doesn't get liberated in this one, he will come hereafter. So, in this, when this idea of the Atman is introduced, that the Atman is immortal, it is birthless and deathless, it's of the nature of infinite existence, knowledge, bliss, purity, beauty, and all those divine qualities. That is what we really are. The bodies are like clothes we put on, and as they wear out, we take them off. The soul cannot be killed, it cannot be injured in any way. On the other hand, the bodies are put on and taken off. So wherever there is birth, there is death, as the two sides of this duality. So that was the first education part that had to be given. And in many of us, in this situation, when we are confronted with the situation where the fear of death is there through this invisible virus, we have to also enlarge our understanding of what we are. And having understood that through study of scriptures and contemplation and all that, the next stage would be to learn the art of working. That's the second teaching. Sri Krishna says that we should learn through spiritual practice to be anchored in the idea that we are a spiritual being, we are the Atman, Sthita Prajna, being established in that knowledge of ourselves as a spiritual being, and then engaging ourselves in this battle of life. That was taught to Arjuna. So where Sri Krishna says, look, by the nature of this world, life and death, victory and defeat, gain and loss, health and disease, and all these are part and parcel of life. Being born, one has to go through them. But it's our attachment to these things that is the cause of our problem. Can we learn the art of detaching ourselves, being a spectator, and keeping ourselves aloof from this, and then engage ourselves in this battle of life. Each one is fighting his or her own battle of life. So that is the second idea that is being taught. Then in the chapter 3 it talks about karma yoga, the art of converting every karma into yoga. Most of us do karma only. We go to in the morning every day to work, we come back, and that's how we go throughout whole life. Very few know that there's a science of working, how to convert every action into a spiritual discipline by not being attached to the results of all the works, at the same time being very efficient. Yogastu karma kaushalam. Learn the art of working by maintaining a balance, equipoise. Samatvam yogamuchyate. These ideas are beautifully taught in the Bhagavad Gita by Sri Krishna. So in a time like this, when we have plenty of time to reflect and all that, it's a good idea to pick up these books and read through them and see if we can pick up some knowledge and skill sets that will empower us to review or view life and our situation in a different light, and how we can turn this to our advantage. And so throughout the Bhagavad Gita, different techniques and methods are taught. It's a very useful and practical book. It deals with how we can be empowered to be masters of our current situation. At the same time, it also tells and teaches us and directs us our attention to the ultimate goal and purpose of life. Because this sequence of births and rebirths is something that has been going on for many, many times in our lifetimes. Many times we have been born, many times we have died. Either it could be an accident or some disease, or we might just go to bed and don't get up in the next day. So death is an inevitable fact. whether we ignore it and bury our head like an ostrich in the sand and get caught by surprise, or we can turn around and face it. So, how do we face it? Knowledge is a great purifier. Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Nahi jnanena sadirisham pavitramiha vidyate. There is no greater purifier than knowledge. It empowers us. And spiritual knowledge is the greatest purifier. The more we understand our true nature, the more we develop the conviction, the more we understand and appreciate the grandeur, the greatness of this Atman. Imagine something, an existence which is infinite, which is immortal, there is no death in it. Imagine a state of being where there is infinite bliss without any misery. Imagine a state of being where there is infinite knowledge without any ignorance, which is the source of all strength, purity, beauty and goodness. That is what we really are in our spiritual essence. But we are like the rubber band that has been pulled out away from our peaceful state, and now we are in this tension. So in these two polarities of the rubber band, one is our real nature, the real man. The other one is this human nature, human being, the Jivatman, the apparent man. And so long we are trying to maintain this status, having been born, trying to remain here, thinking that this world is real, this is permanent, that happiness is there, knowledge is here, and somehow or the other I should continue living here. This will be a stressful situation. Life is trying to teach us something else, that no matter how successful, how smart we are in managing situations, this is not the ultimate destination. Everything here is very limited. You can get it, but it will slip out of your hands. You can have life, but you can live maximum of 100 or 110 years. Then the body will become old and die. Knowledge is also very limited. Happiness comes and disappears in a trice. But we are all seeking for infinite existence, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. That cannot be found in this relative world, in this limited world. That is the message that life after life, Mother Nature is trying to teach us. But we cannot give up this pursuit. Why? Because that is our true nature. We are that infinite existence, knowledge, bliss, Akhanda Satchidananda. And that infinity cannot be fully manifested in this finite world. In the Kathopanishad, Nachiketa, when he was given all these wonderful options by Yamaraj, you can live for thousands of years, okay? Death will not touch you. You can have all these enjoyments and all those things. Nachiketa, being a smart boy, Dhira, whose intelligence had opened, intelligent. So he said, Nahi dhruvam adhruveshu prarthayante. Dhruvam means which is eternal. Adhruveshu, those things which are transient and temporary. A wise person does not seek for permanent things in transitory things. So, that type of knowledge, that type of discrimination is necessary for us. So, now and then, in this type of situation, we should reflect. It's a beautiful, wonderful time to put the pause button and say, so how we have been in our own life, in this particular station of life, what we have achieved, and then use the scriptures as a compass and a map to say what we want to achieve, what's the ultimate purpose of life, and then you can chalk out a path, what you are going to do in the rest of your life, so that it's leading you towards the ultimate goal. Those who are versed with the scriptures, spiritual teachings, will very quickly be able to align the compass to the north, because that knowledge is there. Others will have to access that knowledge themselves and use that as a guide in that spiritual journey. So the Bhagavad Gita is a wonderful scripture, and if you can read that, understand that, take a few teachings and apply them in your life after this, while this crisis is going on and hereafter, that would be something that will be very, very useful in this One of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita that comes very powerfully in situation is this non-attachment, the idea of non-attachment. Having all the things around you is not bad, but our attachment to those things is the cause of our problems. And we have to learn to let go. Just like this rubber band is stretched, its intention, when we let go, it recoils to its own peaceful, unstressed, without any tension state. Likewise, that perfect peace that we are seeking for, it is not in this world here, but it is in our Atman nature. Just like Christ in the Bible says, peace that surpasseth all understanding, param shanti. That shanti and that peace that we are seeking for is within us, not outside us. All this time we have been trying to put our best effort to acquire these things outside. Here we hit a pause button and realize that whatever we are seeking, the search is not bad. But where we are seeking and how we are seeking probably is not right. That discrimination comes, and if you can't find it outside, or literally when you can't go outside, you have to be inside. Just being inside the house is not the solution. Going inside within ourselves. So, as one of the stress management techniques, we have to learn that art of diving deep within ourselves, reaching that space which is absolutely calm and peaceful. We might not reach there immediately, but the more we approach it, the more calmness we will feel. We have to understand that this world is a world at this level of existence. There will be life and death. There will be success and failure. There will be gain and loss. That is the nature of this world. If we don't like it, we have to, and we can't change the world too much around us, we have to subjectively change ourselves, and the solution is within us. Vedanta is that science and technique, gives us those techniques by which we can make those subjective changes within ourselves. Because changing the outside world is not possible, we have to change ourselves. Just like in the ocean, a big fish is chasing a small fish, it will run here and there, complain, no one will listen until it learns the art of becoming maybe a flying fish, and maybe it becomes a bird, and then it's out of the reach of this fish. Likewise, we have to transform ourselves so that the problems cannot touch us. Problems will remain there, but they do not affect us because we have transformed ourselves. So how do we empower ourselves to go within ourselves, to access that knowledge, that strength, whatever that happiness that we are seeking for within ourselves? And in that regard, meditation, controlling the mind. This mind itself is the source of all knowledge, it's the source of all, cause of all happiness, and also the cause of all misery. It can bind us to this world and it can free us from this world. Maneva manushyanam karanam bandha vimokshayo. The mind alone is the cause of both bondage and freedom in man. We will do work, but we have to learn the art of working. If we turn the screwdriver in a screw in a clockwise direction, it tightens. If you turn it in the opposite direction, it loosens. So we must learn certain things that will bind us to this world, and other things, other type of, or doing a work in another way, will free us from this world. That art is called karma yoga, converting karma into yoga. So that is, Bhagavad Gita is a beautiful book that will teach us that. When we go back into work, try to be karma yogis, not just karmis. Do work, but not be attached to the results of the work. And try to seek the truth within us. In that regard, we teach our students the simple technique of meditation. Meditation is the technique by which we gradually restrain the outward going tendencies of the mind, detach it from the things of the world, and then direct it to that essence of whatever we are within us. So after this class, I will ask Swamiji to make available to you a very basic guided meditation techniques, and you can download and put them into practice. But the basic teachings are like this. You have to be able to be in a quiet, nice place in your home, somewhere, whether it's a shrine, your room. Be able to sit down in a steady posture for 15-20 minutes, so that don't really have to sit on the floor. If you cannot do that, you can sit on a chair, so long you can maintain keep your back, neck and head in a relaxed upright position. You can use some breathing techniques, inhaling and exhaling in a very deep, relaxed way. Do it for 5 times, 10 times, and you'll find that a certain degree of calmness of mind will come, because the breath movement and mental activity are interrelated. And then, before we try to meditate, let us pray for the welfare and good of the world. In these trying times, we can, when we physically cannot reach out to people, we can pray for the welfare of all. Our positive thoughts radiating out from us with all the good intention and directed towards the divine to help people, really reach out to people, because we are mentally connected in the same ocean of the cosmic mind. And as the thoughts go out, it can help and uplift people wherever. So we can do that. Having done that, then we come to meditation proper, in which we try to visualize. A simple meditation technique is to visualize in the center of your own heart a beautiful lotus, fully bloomed, full of freshness and fragrance. Imagine a beautiful flame in the center of that lotus, steady like a flame, a lamp kept in a windless place, spreading its radiance in all directions. And you may replace that flame with any divine form of your choice, any form of God. If you are initiated, your Guru would have given you a particular form. And imagine that divine residing in the center of your heart, full of grace, full of compassion, full of love, full of affection, eager and ready to bestow all the spiritual joys and spiritual gifts to you. Open your heart to Him, install Him there, and imagine that the light that radiates from Him is the light of spiritual knowledge that fills every cell of your body, every corner of your mind with spiritual knowledge. Imagine that the light that comes from Him is the light of strength that strengthens you physically, mentally, emotionally, morally, and spiritually. It's the light of holiness and purity that fills you with inner sense of purity in there. It's the light of bliss that fills you with inner joy. It's the light of all divine qualities. And you focus your whole mind on the divine form. You may, if you have been initiated, repeat the mantra that has been given to you. Otherwise, one can just repeat the universal sound Om. And wherever the mind wanders away, you bring it back to that divine form within you. If you choose, you can just visualize that light, but repeat that universal sound Om. And try it out. Hold that mind there. It will wander around. In the beginning, you'll struggle. You're trying to meditate, and next moment it's going out into your office and in the street and everywhere. But by repeated practice, you'll find that the mind will slowly become calmer and calmer and calmer. As the mind becomes calmer and calmer, you will find that you will begin to have an inner center of gravity, a little bit of sense of peace and things. It doesn't happen overnight on the first day, but you have to, just like if you went to the gymnasium and you did some exercises on the first day, you don't come back with lots of muscles, but you have to persevere and understand that it's a discipline, it's an exercise. That exercise will bring or awaken that power within us. So this is something we can do. How often do we do? Well, if you have time, morning and evening is an ideal time. Get up early in the morning, freshen up, find a quiet space in your house, if there's a prayer room or quiet room, and reflect on these teachings and try to control your mind and calm it down. Then engage yourself during the day. There's so much time. Read some spiritual books like the Bhagavad Gita. At least try to go through it sincerely. find out some teachings that you'll apply in your life. In the evening also, try to give some 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, as much as your capacity, to increase it gently. And you'll find that as the mind becomes less and less agitated, it becomes calmer and calmer, it itself becomes a source of great strength. What we are trying to do through meditation is to connect to that infinite reservoir of energy, knowledge, power that's within us. Not depending on outside things, but trying to empower ourselves to be the masters of the situation. The more we are connected to that Atman or the soul or the self or whatever, God, whatever language you want to choose, to at the foundation of our being, the more stable and steady we will be. There is this little Japanese doll, they say. It cannot be made to fall down. You tilt it over, it will straighten itself up. And those who are students of physics will say that happens because the center of gravity is so deep within itself, so close to the center, the surface of that table, that it cannot be made to fall down. So we have to ask ourselves, where is our center of gravity? Is it in the properties and things and outside possessions that we have that give us value? Well, if that is the situation, today it is there, tomorrow it will be taken away and we'll be falling flat on our face. Is it on our physical appearance and strength that is there? Well, it could be there today, but with age and all that or disease, it can be taken away. So it's not the safest place to invest our best effort. Is it in our mental level? Well, if it's there today, we are all very smart and all that, but we see cases where people lose their memory, dementia comes and then goes away. But as we go deeper and deeper and anchor ourselves into our spiritual nature, that's where the real strength comes. In all these great saints and people that we see, who could do wonderful things in this world for themselves and for the rest of humanity, the great teachers, the prophets, they had that connection, access to that power, and they drew out of that and distributed it to others also. That is potentially present in every human being. And that's the beautiful teaching of Swami Vivekananda. Each soul is potentially divine. That means it's not that we have to create an Atman or become an Atman. It is there all the time. But this mind is the barrier due to which the inner light and power is not able to come through. And the task in front of us, how we can calm the mind, how we can purify the mind, so that the inner joy, beauty, purity, strength, and the immortal nature can shine through. So you see, we can take this situation and utilize to reflect, to study the scriptures, to start some spiritual practices, and hereafter to make sure that a little bit of spiritual practices and disciplines are part and parcel of our everyday living. And as we practice, as we become more grounded into our spiritual nature, we'll find that there is a wonderful sense of balance and peace that we'll have access to. Yes, the outside world will not change. All this pendulum of life and death, disease and health, success and loss, victory and defeat, all those things will be there. But we would be closer and closer to the source where these things will not affect us so much. And the ideal, the goal is to reach that one point in the pendulum, which is where the string is tied to the beam, or so to say, which is not swinging while the pendulum is swinging. That point, that space is within us. That is the ideal of a person who is established in the spiritual wisdom, sthita prajna, and that is the ideal person who can go and work, not be affected by all those things. A perfect example is Shri Krishna himself. You see, he is in the midst of the battlefield, yet he is not in any way affected by it. So here we are in this world, in these difficult trying times. This, how this will unfold, how this is going to recalibrate the world, what is going to be the new normal will be totally different. And many people might not be trained for it, educated for it, and it will be a big challenge. We don't have much control of the situation outside us. Governments and community, society in different ways are trying to grapple with these things, but each one of us can empower ourselves to be stronger by diving deep within ourselves, accessing that inner strength. That is what we need. Swami Vivekananda said, strength is life, weakness is death. What we want to do is, and where is the strength? The strength is coming from our Atman nature. Spiritual practices, japa, meditation, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga are various techniques by which we connect to that infinite source that is within us. The more we can draw from that, the better we are. You'll find that a sense of greater discrimination will come, discernment will come, we will engage ourselves in activities, we will go back into the work field, but those things will not affect us. We will maintain that greater balance. So we have to learn this art of giving up, detaching from the things that hold the mind to this material world, and only then this mind will begin to lift up to a high level. So there's a little story of in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It tells about a mongoose that had made a little home in a little hole on the stump of a tree. And while it will roam around every day, in the daytime looking for its food, but in the evening it will jump up and climb into that hole and sleep in there. Some little naughty boys in the village, one day got hold of the mongoose and tied a string to its tail and tied a little stone at the back of it, at the other end of it, and left it. So in the evening, when the mongoose tried to crawl into the hole to take rest, it crawled in there and just settled in, and then slowly the weight of the stone dragged him out, and he crawled in and he dragged him out. So in spiritual practices, you'll find that when we try to go within ourselves to that nice quiet place, you will go there and rest in, but before you know, all these little stones tied to our tail, which is all our engagements and our responsibilities and duties and our attachments, they will drag you out of that. And you will not find much peace for long there. So first we have to untie all these little stones tied to our tail, detach ourselves from these various things. And only then, when you practice meditation, you will find that your mind will be able to stay within for longer time. So some preparations are necessary. Keep this little story in your mind when you're trying to meditate and you find that your mind is not settling in. You are sitting in your room and trying to meditate, and next moment it is going out there. Then analyze it, and you will find that there are some attachments, emotional or mental or responsibility or duty, which are the causes that are dragging the mind out. Mentally detach yourself, and then you'll find that your meditation will become little better. When we are in a situation, difficult situation which is not in our control, how do we face it? Like in this particular situation. So there's another little story. I tell all these stories because you can remember these stories and you can reflect on the meaning and see if they have any relevance to you. So the story is, one day a farmer had a donkey, and on his farm there was a dry well, and the well, it was covered by all these weeds and things, and this donkey slipped and fell into the well. The farmer came and saw the donkey. It is 5 meters deep down there. He tried in various ways to pull it out. He called even his neighbors, and they all could not rescue the old donkey out of the well. Eventually they said that, look, this donkey is going to die there in any way after a lot of suffering. Why don't we just cover it with the soil while and put an end to his misery. So they all took different shovels and they started throwing soil onto that. Now, every time a shovel full of soil landed on the back of the donkey, he would shake it off. And he kept on doing that. And lo and behold, as these people were trying to bury him down, and because the soil was not getting attached to his back and was not able to push him down, before long he found that the soil level had come to the surface and the donkey could walk out. So here we are in this situation, caught in this well, so to say, and various problems in different cases and in different ways will come to us. The important thing is we don't get attached to it. Learn to shake it off. Learn to let go. And you will find that the problems will not be able to hold us down. Times will change, situation will change, maybe a vaccine will come and all those things, but we have to survive through this time. So to sum it up, we have to introduce a little bit of spirituality in our life, read the scriptures, reflect deeply on them, understand that no matter whatever the problems are there, the spirit of man is the most powerful. All knowledge, happiness, beauty, purity, strength is within us. Learn the technique of connecting ourselves to that. It's like the power grid. If you connect yourself to that, you can draw either 5 amperes or 50 amperes because that infinite source of electricity and power is there. Likewise, that Atman is the source of infinite power and goodness. And put those practices. Unless we do the exercises, the muscles will not come out. Medicine, like we have physical exercises, likewise we have spiritual exercises. When we do them regularly, sincerely, after some time we will begin to feel that awakening of that power. That's the best way we can empower ourselves to build the inner strength. And as our inner strength becomes more and more, the problems outside will become less and less. It's all about making a subjective change. We have to make a change in our attitude and decide whether we will be small and insignificant or we assert our Atman nature. So we cannot change the world around, but we can change ourselves. Either we say we are a little human being buffeted by all these situations around, or we are the Atman and we assert our eternal nature. If there's a little pebble on the road and an ant is going past it or along it, confronted by it, it's a big problem for, the stone is a big problem for an ant. But if an elephant goes by it, he does not even notice that pebble. So we have the option to become small and limited, insignificant as a limited human being, which is like an ant, or assert our divine nature, which is like the elephant. The stone will not change, we can change ourselves. And Vedanta is the technique, or spiritual life is the technique by which we empower ourselves with that. So, while we are going through all these situations, we did not discuss any idea of God, and we didn't have time for that, how we can access to the divine power to help us through these difficult times. But let us pray for the welfare of all. May all beings be peaceful and joyful when they seek the divine within themselves, and may they have that inner awakening and strength to overcome the problems that they have. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tassat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanam.